Before highways, before research teams and influencers. They were here, watching, learning, wearing, the first people they've always known. Now, so do you. Tonight we present 20 Skinwalker encounters. So close your eyes, relax your body, and if you hear your loved one calling you from the dark,
Amy, where are you?
Don't answer.
Grandmother's box. The notification came through Facebook Messenger at 2:47 a.m. Auntie Carol, typing in all caps. Your kokum passed. Come home. Maya stared at her phone screen in the dark of her Seattle apartment, the blue light making her hands look corpse pale. She hadn't been back to the res in 3 years. Not since the argument. Not since she'd left for college, and her Uncle Raymond had called her a sellout at the family dinner, his eyes flat and cold across the table. Now, Kokum was gone. The drive north took 6 hours. Maya watched the landscape shift from city to suburb to rural highway, then finally to the familiar scrub pine and red dirt roads of home. The Sky River Reservation looked smaller than she remembered, the houses more weathered, the community center's paint more faded. October wind pushed tumbleweeds across the main road. Kokum's house sat at the end of a gravel drive, a small rancher with blue trim that needed repainting. Maya's mom met her at the door, eyes swollen from crying. Heart attack, her mom said. Found her in the kitchen. Raymond found her. Something cold touched Maya's spine at the mention of his name. Where is he? Around. He's been helping with arrangements. Her mom's voice was flat, exhausted. We need to go through her things. The funeral's in 3 days. The house still smelled like kokum, sage and fry bread, and the lavender soap she always used. Maya's throat tightened. She'd meant to visit. She'd meant to call more. Now there was just this, cardboard boxes and the task of dismantling a life. Her mom took the living room. Maya got the bedroom. Kokum's room was small and neat. The bed was made with a star quilt Maya remembered from childhood. Photographs covered the dresser. Maya's school pictures, her cousins, old black and whites of relatives long dead. Maya opened the closet and started pulling down boxes from the top shelf. Most of it was what you'd expect. Old tax documents, recipes written in Kokum's careful handwriting, a shoebox full of beadwork supplies. Maya worked methodically, sorting things into piles: keep, donate, trash. Then she found the lockbox. It was small, metal, painted green. It had been shoved to the very back of the closet's top shelf, behind a stack of blankets. No key, but the lock was old and cheap. Maya used a screwdriver from Kokum's junk drawer and popped it open. Inside was a bundle wrapped in red cloth. Maya's hands hesitated before touching it. Something about the bundle felt wrong. The way it sat in the box, the weight of it, the smell that rose up when she disturbed the fabric. Copper and rot and something else. Something animal. She unwrapped it slowly. The bones came first. Small ones, arranged in a circle and bound with sinew. They weren't from one animal. Maya could see that immediately. Bird bones, maybe. Rodent bones. Something larger. They'd been carved with symbols she didn't recognize, scratched deep into the yellowed surface. Beneath the bones was dried flesh, leathery, dark, stretched over a frame of twisted wire. It might have been a face once, or several faces. The features were wrong. Too many eye sockets, a mouth that went too far back, teeth that didn't match. And at the bottom, a photograph. Uncle Raymond, maybe 20 years younger, standing in front of Kokum's house. Someone had scratched out his eyes with something sharp. Beneath the photo, in Kokum's handwriting on a piece of paper, "He is not what he seems. He killed his brother. Protect yourself." Maya's hands started shaking. Uncle Raymond's brother, Maya's father, had died when she was 2. Hunting accident, everyone said. Fell and broke his neck in the woods. They'd found him 3 days later. She rewrapped the bundle with numb fingers and shoved it back in the lockbox. Her mind was racing. This was insane. Kokum had been old, maybe confused, maybe... The floorboard creaked behind her. "Find anything interesting?" Maya spun around. Uncle Raymond stood in the bedroom doorway, filling the frame. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, with long hair pulled back in a ponytail. His face was weathered and handsome. His eyes were very dark. "Just old papers," Maya said. Her voice came out steady. The lockbox was on the floor beside her, partially hidden by her body. Raymond smiled. "Lot of memories in this house." He stepped into the room. "Your Kokum, she kept everything. Never threw anything away." "Yeah." Maya stood up slowly, positioning herself between him and the lockbox. "Mom needs help in the living room. I'll help you finish in here first." He moved closer. "What's in the box?" "Nothing. Just photos." His smile didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Let me see." "It's personal stuff. I don't think..." His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Fast. Too fast. His grip was iron hard, his skin fever hot. "Let me see," he said again, and his voice had changed. Deeper, with an edge that made Maya's hindbrain scream. She yanked her arm back and stumbled toward the door. "Mom!" Raymond moved to block her path. He wasn't smiling anymore. In the dim bedroom light, his face looked different. Longer, the bones more pronounced, his eyes catching the light like an animal's. "She knew," he said quietly. "The old woman knew. That's why I had to..." He stopped himself, tilted his head. "You found it, didn't you? What she kept." Maya's back hit the wall. Her phone was in her pocket. Her mom was just down the hall. But Raymond was between her and the door, and he was changing. She could see it now, the way his shoulders hunched forward, the way his fingers lengthened, the sound of something cracking and reforming beneath his skin. "Dad didn't fall," Maya whispered. Raymond's laugh was wet and wrong. "Your dad was weak, talked too much, threatened to tell people what I was learning, what I was becoming." His jaw distended, teeth lengthening. "The old ways require sacrifice. Family blood is the strongest." Maya grabbed the only thing within reach, Kokum's heavy wooden jewelry box, and hurled it at his face. It connected with a solid thunk. Raymond staggered back, snarling, and Maya bolted. She made it 3 steps into the hallway before he caught her ankle. She went down hard, chin cracking against the floor, tasting blood. His hand on her leg was burning hot, the fingers too long, tipped with something sharp that dug into her skin. "Mom!" Maya screamed, kicking back with her free leg. Her heel connected with something that felt like a muzzle. Raymond made a sound that was half human, half animal, a wet, choking growl. Maya twisted and saw him fully for the first time. His face elongated into something between man and coyote, his body hunched and wrong, covered in patches of fur and exposed muscle. His eyes were yellow and mad. Her mom appeared at the end of the hallway, frozen in shock. "Run!" Maya screamed. The thing that had been Raymond released her ankle and turned toward her mother. Maya didn't think. She grabbed the lockbox from the bedroom floor and swung it with everything she had at the back of his skull. The metal connected with a hollow thunk. Raymond, the Skinwalker, stumbled forward, and Maya ran past him, grabbing her mother's arm and dragging her toward the front door. They burst outside into the cold October air. Maya's car was parked in the driveway. She fumbled for her keys, hands shaking so badly she could barely grip them. Behind them, the front door exploded outward. The thing that came through was barely human anymore. It ran on all fours, its spine twisted, its face a nightmare of teeth and fur and human eyes. It was fast, impossibly fast. Maya shoved her mother into the passenger seat and threw herself behind the wheel. The engine turned over once, twice. The Skinwalker hit the driver's side window. The glass spiderwebbed but held. Maya saw its face pressed against the window, Raymond's eyes in a coyote's skull. And then she was reversing down the driveway, tires spitting gravel. The creature chased them for half a mile, keeping pace with the car at 40 miles per hour, running alongside them in the ditch. Maya could hear it howling, a sound that was almost words, almost her name. Then it veered off into the scrub pine and was gone. Maya didn't stop driving until they reached the tribal police station in town. Her mother was crying, hyperventilating, saying the same thing over and over. That wasn't Raymond. That wasn't Raymond. But Maya knew better. That was Raymond. That had always been Raymond. The police found Kokum's house empty. No sign of forced entry, no sign of Raymond. They searched for 3 days and found nothing. Maya told them everything, about the bundle, the photograph, what Kokum had written. They listened with careful, neutral faces and took notes. On the 4th day, they found Raymond's truck abandoned on a logging road 30 miles away. No body, no blood. Just the truck, driver's door open, keys still in the ignition. The tribal elder who came to speak with Maya was an old man named Thomas. He sat across from her in the police station's break room and listened to her story without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Your grandmother was a strong woman," he finally said. "She knew things, saw things." He looked at Maya with eyes that had seen too much. Some people, they go looking for power in the old ways, but they do it wrong. They break the rules. They become something else. "Is he gone?" Maya asked. Thomas shook his head slowly. "Things like that don't go away. They just wait." Maya moved back to Seattle the next week. She didn't attend Kokum's funeral. Couldn't bear to be there. Couldn't bear to see the empty spaces where family should be. Her mom stayed with her for a month, sleeping on the couch, jumping at every sound. The lockbox sat in Maya's closet, wrapped in sage and red cloth. She couldn't bring herself to destroy it. It was evidence. It was proof. It was all she had left of Kokum's protection. Sometimes, late at night, Maya woke to the sound of scratching at her apartment door. When she looked through the peephole, there was nothing there. But in the morning, she'd find marks in the wood. Long, deep gouges that looked like claws. And once, just once, she saw him. She was walking home from the grocery store at dusk, arms full of bags, when she felt eyes on her. She turned and saw a coyote standing at the end of the block, watching her. It was too big, its proportions wrong, and when it tilted its head, the gesture was painfully human. Maya ran. She didn't look back. The coyote didn't follow, but she knew, the way Kokum had known, the way the old people knew, that it was still out there, waiting, watching. Some debts, Thomas had told her, are paid in blood. Maya just didn't know yet if the debt was settled, or if Raymond was still collecting. She kept the lockbox close. She burned sage every night. And she never, ever walked alone after dark. But sometimes, in the space between sleep and waking, she heard it. A howl that sounded almost like her name, carried on the wind from somewhere far away. Or maybe not so far, after all. The wearing. I found the skin 3 days ago, hanging from a juniper branch like some obscene fruit. Coyote. Fresh enough that the flies hadn't found it yet. Peeled off whole, like someone had unzipped the animal from the inside out. I should have left it there. But my hands. God, my hands moved on their own. They reached out and touched the fur, still damp on the underside, still warm. The membrane clinging to the inside felt like wet silk, like something that wanted to be touched. When I lifted it, it was impossibly light, hollow, and I swear I felt it breathe against my palms. I brought it home. I don't remember deciding to. I just remember standing in my kitchen at 2 a.m. with this thing draped across my arms like a sleeping child. And the smell. Christ, the smell of copper and musk and something else. Something ancient and hungry that made my mouth water. The first time I put it on, I told myself it was curiosity. Just to see. Just to feel. The skin slid over my shoulders like it had been waiting for me. Like it recognized me. That's when the pain started. My spine arched backward, vertebrae popping like knuckles, each disc separating and reforming. I felt my bones soften, heard them creak and splinter as they compressed, reshaped. My femurs shortened with wet crunching sounds. My pelvis cracked apart and fused back together at a different angle. I screamed, but the sound came out wrong, too high, too sharp, ending in a yip that wasn't human. My face. Jesus Christ, my face. The skin tightened around my skull like a vice. I felt my jaw elongate, teeth loosening in their sockets before new ones, sharp, wrong, pushed through my gums in a hot rush of blood. My nose collapsed inward, cartilage dissolving, reforming into something wet and black. My eyes burned as they shifted position, moving to the sides of my head, and suddenly I could see everything. The world stretched wide and flat, and full of movement I'd never noticed before. My fingers fused together, nails thickening into claws that scraped against the linoleum. I watched, I felt my humanity peel away from the inside, layer by layer, like skin from a blister. But the worst part? The part that makes me shake even now? It felt good. When the transformation finished, when I stood on 4 legs in my kitchen with my tongue lolling and my heart hammering in a chest that was too small, too tight, I felt free. The human thoughts, the human guilt, the human fear, they were still there, but distant, muffled, like listening to someone scream underwater. I ran that night, out through the dog door I'd never installed, into the desert that suddenly made sense in a way it never had before. I could smell everything. The mice in their burrows, the rabbits frozen in terror, the deer 3 miles away. I could taste the fear in the air. And I was so hungry. I don't want to tell you what I ate. I don't want to remember the way bones crunch between teeth that aren't yours, the way hot blood tastes when you're something that was made to taste it. I don't want to remember the rabbit I caught, the way it screamed. They screamed, did you know that? Like children. Or how I didn't stop eating even when I was full. When I changed back, when the skin finally loosened and I could peel it off with shaking, blood-slicked hands, I vomited for an hour. But I kept the skin. I folded it carefully and put it in my closet, and I told myself I'd never touch it again. That was 2 days ago. Last night, I put it on again. And the night before that. Each time it's easier. Each time I stay out longer. Each time it's harder to remember why I should stop. Tonight, I'm wearing it now as I write this. My fingers are already starting to fuse, the claws making it hard to type. My jaw aches with the pressure of teeth that want to be somewhere else. The skin is tighter this time, like it doesn't want to let go, like it's tired of being taken off. I can feel it in my head now, whispering in a language older than words. It's telling me that I was never really human to begin with, that this skin isn't a costume, it's a correction, that the thing I'm becoming is what I always was underneath. And the terrifying thing? I'm starting to believe it. My hands are almost gone now. This will be the last thing I write as something that could be called human. After tonight, I don't think I'll remember how to come back. I don't think I'll want to. If you find this, if you find the skin, don't touch it. Don't... Oh God, it feels so good. The thing that wore my brother. I should not be writing this. Even now, my grandmother's voice echoes in my mind. Don't speak of them. Don't even think their name. But silence has become its own kind of poison. And if I don't get this out, I think it will consume me from the inside. It happened 3 weeks ago on the reservation, at my uncle's place near Shiprock. I'd driven out from Albuquerque to help him fix his fence line. Just me and my younger brother, Marcus. Simple work. We'd be back by Sunday. The first night was normal. We ate mutton stew, talked about nothing important, went to bed early. Uncle Ray's house sits alone, surrounded by scrubland and red rock formations that look like sleeping giants in the moonlight. The nearest neighbor is 4 miles away. I woke around 2 a.m. to scratching. Not the skittering of mice or the scrape of branches. This was deliberate. Long, slow drags across the roof directly above my head. The sound of something with claws, testing the surface, searching. My mouth went dry. I lay there in the darkness, every muscle locked, listening to that methodical scraping move from one end of the roof to the other. Then, it stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, the whisper of my breath. Then, from outside the window, maybe 10 feet away, I heard Marcus's voice. Hey, wake up! Come outside! But Marcus was asleep in the next room. I'd heard him snoring when I went to bed. Come on, the voice said again, perfectly mimicking my brother's tone, his slight lisp on the S sounds. You gotta see this. It's important. My skin crawled. Every instinct screamed at me not to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I turned my head slowly toward the window. 2 eyes reflected the moonlight back at me, too high off the ground, too far apart. They glowed with a yellow-green luminescence that had nothing to do with natural eye shine. As I stared, frozen, the thing outside shifted, and I saw its silhouette against the star-filled sky. It was crouched on all fours, but the proportions were wrong, too tall. The limbs bent at angles that made my brain hurt trying to process them. And the head. God. The head was caught somewhere between human and coyote. The snout too short. The skull too broad. Why won't you come outside? Marcus's voice asked. But the mouth didn't move right. The words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. The thing pressed closer to the window, and I saw its hands, if you could call them that. long fingers ending in black claws, but with too many joints, wrapped around the window frame. The glass was the only thing between us. Then, it smiled. I've never seen anything smile like that. The lips pulled back to reveal teeth that were too numerous, too sharp, arranged in a mouth that was trying to be human, but couldn't quite remember how. Saliva dripped from its jaws, steaming in the cold night air. "I know you can hear me," it said in Marcus's voice. "I can smell you in there. I can smell your fear. It smells good." I must have made some sound, a whimper, a gasp, because its head cocked to the side with a crack of vertebrae, and those eyes brightened with something like pleasure. That's when I heard Uncle Ray's door open down the hall. His footsteps, slow and heavy. The thing's attention snapped toward the sound, and in one fluid motion, it dropped from the window and was gone. I heard it hit the ground, a wet, heavy thud, and then nothing. No footsteps, no sound of retreat. It was just gone. Uncle Ray appeared in my doorway, shotgun in hand. His face was gray in the darkness, eyes hard. "You saw it," he said, not a question. I nodded, still unable to speak. "Stay inside. Don't open the door. Don't look out the windows. And don't..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Don't say what it was. Not out loud. Not ever." He didn't sleep the rest of the night. Neither did I. I heard him moving through the house, checking locks, muttering prayers in Navajo that I only half understood. When I finally crept out to check on Marcus, I found him sleeping peacefully, undisturbed. The next morning, we found tracks in the dirt outside my window. They started as coyote prints, then gradually shifted, elongated, the pads spreading into something almost like human hands and feet. They circled the house 3 times before heading off into the scrubland. Uncle Ray burned white sage and scattered corn pollen around the property. He wouldn't explain, and I didn't ask. We should have left then. God, we should have left. But Marcus wanted to stay, finish the job. He hadn't seen anything, didn't understand why Uncle Ray and I were so tense. He thought we were being superstitious. I couldn't tell him. The words wouldn't come. Even thinking about it too directly made my head ache, made my stomach turn. The second night, it came back. This time, it was bolder. It didn't hide in the shadows. Around midnight, I heard it on the roof again. But now, it was moving faster, running back and forth, the claws gouging deep scratches into the metal. The whole house shook with its weight. Then, it started calling. First in Marcus's voice, then in mine, then in voices I recognized, my mother, my grandmother, my ex-girlfriend. It cycled through them, sometimes mixing them together, creating horrible chimeras of sound that made my ears ring. "Let me in," it said in my dead grandfather's voice. "I'm so cold out here. Why won't you help me?" Marcus woke up this time. I heard him cry out, heard Uncle Ray rush to his room. I stayed in my bed, covers pulled up to my chin like a child, listening to that thing where the voices of everyone I'd ever loved like stolen clothes. It stayed until dawn. When the first light broke over the horizon, it let out a sound, not quite a howl, not quite a scream, that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. Then, silence. In the morning, we found something hanging from the fence post nearest the house. At first, I thought it was a coyote pelt, but as we got closer, I realized it was inside out, the muscle and sinew exposed, still glistening wet. It was arranged carefully, deliberately, like a message. Uncle Ray cut it down with shaking hands and burned it immediately. We left that afternoon. Uncle Ray didn't argue. He gave me a small pouch of white ash and made me promise to keep it with me. He wouldn't look me in the eye when he said goodbye. Marcus doesn't remember most of it. He says he had nightmares, but the details are fuzzy. I envy him that. I'm back in Albuquerque now, but I don't feel safe. 3 nights ago, I heard scratching on my apartment roof. Last night, I heard my own voice outside my window, asking to be let in. I keep the white ash under my pillow. I sleep with the lights on. And I'm writing this down because I need someone to know, even if I can never speak it aloud. If you're reading this and you're from the reservation, you already know what I'm talking about. You know why I can't say its name. You know that talking about it is dangerous, that even acknowledging its existence is an invitation. But I also know this: it's not done with me. Last night, the voice outside my window wasn't mine anymore. It was Marcus's again, but different. Wet. Wrong. "I'm coming inside soon," it said. "You can't keep me out forever." The white ash is running low. I don't know what happens when it runs out. The Witness Protocol. Field Report. Fragment. Dr. Sarah Vance. Skinwalker Ranch Investigation Team. Day 47. I need to write this down while my hands still remember how to hold a pen. The cattle started it. That's what I keep telling myself. Though I know now that's a lie. The cattle were just the first thing we noticed. I arrived at the ranch in late September as part of the third wave of researchers. The ones brought in after Bigelow's team had already spent 18 months chasing lights in the sky and finding nothing but bills and bruised egos. I was a neurobiologist, specializing in prion diseases and protein misfolding. They wanted me to examine the cattle, to explain the mutilations. Surgical precision, the foreman told me on my first day, his weathered face unreadable beneath his hat. No blood, organs removed through impossibly small incisions. Happens overnight. No tracks, no sounds. I'd heard it all before. I'd read the reports. Predation, I thought. Scavengers. Decomposition gases creating the illusion of precision. The usual explanations that made city people feel smart and ranchers feel dismissed. Then, I saw the first one. The Hereford was in the north pasture, lying on its side in the morning frost. From a distance, it looked asleep. Up close, the wrongness hit me like a physical force. The left side of its face was gone, not torn, not eaten, but excised. The eye, the ear, the tongue, all removed through incisions so clean they could have been made with a laser. But it was the expression on the remaining half of its face that made my stomach turn. The visible eye was wide open, crystallized with frost, and in that frozen pupil, I could see something that looked like terror so profound it had transcended the animal's capacity to process it. There was no blood, not a drop. The ground beneath was undisturbed. I took samples. Tissue from the wound margins showed cellular disruption I'd never seen before. The cells hadn't been cut so much as convinced to separate. The proteins were wrong, folded in configurations that shouldn't exist outside of theoretical models. I spent 3 days in the lab, running tests, checking and rechecking my equipment. On the 4th day, I found the second cow, then the third. Then I stopped counting. Dr. Marcus Webb, the team lead, called a meeting. 15 of us gathered in the ranch house's main room, surrounded by monitoring equipment that hummed and blinked with data we couldn't interpret. Webb was a physicist, brilliant and arrogant. The kind of man who believed the universe could be reduced to equations if you just found the right variables. "We're expanding the sensor grid," he announced. "Magnetic anomalies are spiking in the northwest quadrant. Whatever's doing this, it's leaving a signature." "It's not a whatever," said Tom Brightwater, our Ute consultant. He'd been quiet for weeks, watching us with something between pity and resignation. "You know what this place is called. You know the stories." Webb's jaw tightened. "We're scientists, Tom. We deal in evidence, not folklore." "Your evidence is dying in the fields," Tom said softly, "and you still think you're hunting something you can measure." That night, I couldn't sleep. The ranch house was old, full of settling sounds and wind whisper. But there was something else, a frequency just below hearing, a pressure that made my teeth ache. I got up around 2 a.m. and went to the window. The orbs were back. 3 of them, hovering over the north pasture where we'd found the first mutilation. They pulsed with a bioluminescent quality, like deep-sea creatures brought to the surface, beautiful and utterly wrong. I grabbed my camera, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Then I saw the figure. It stood at the edge of the pasture, silhouetted against the orb's glow. Human-shaped, but the proportions were subtly off. Limbs too long, head cocked at an angle that suggested the neck had too many vertebrae. It was watching the orbs, or the orbs were watching it. The relationship between them felt symbiotic, conspiratorial. I should have woken the others. Instead, I watched as the figure began to move. It didn't walk so much as flow, each movement liquid and boneless. It approached one of the orbs, and the light intensified, casting the figure in sharp relief. That's when I saw its face. It was wearing a face. I don't know how else to describe it. The features were human, eyes, nose, mouth, but they sat on the skull like a mask that didn't quite fit, stretched and distorted. And beneath the mask, I could see movement, something shifting and reorganizing, trying to perfect the disguise. The figure turned toward the house, toward my window. It smiled. I stumbled backward, my camera clattering to the floor. When I looked again, both the figure and the orbs were gone. But on the window glass, where my breath had fogged it, something had been written from the outside. "We see you, seeing." I didn't tell anyone. I don't know why. Maybe because I was already starting to doubt my own perceptions. Maybe because some part of me understood that speaking it aloud would make it more real. The next day, Webb announced we'd be conducting a night investigation in the northwest quadrant. Full sensor array, thermal imaging, the works. 12 of us would go. Tom refused. "You're inviting it," he said. "You're showing it you're willing to engage. That's what it wants." What wants?" Webb demanded. Tom looked at each of us in turn, his dark eyes heavy with something like grief. "The thing that wears skins. The thing that learned to wear more than just animal hides. It's been here longer than the Ute, longer than the Navajo. It was here when the land was different, when the rules were different. And it's patient. It watches. It learns. It becomes." Webb dismissed him with a wave. We loaded the equipment into 3 vehicles and headed out at dusk. The northwest quadrant was a depression in the land, a natural bowl surrounded by low ridges. The magnetic readings there were off the charts, our compasses spinning uselessly. We set up the equipment in a rough circle, cameras pointing outward, sensors recording everything from electromagnetic fluctuations to air pressure changes. Night fell like a curtain. For the first hour, nothing happened. We sat in our vehicles, monitoring the feeds, drinking coffee that tasted like copper. Then the temperature dropped. Not gradually, all at once, a 15-degree plunge in less than a minute. Our breath became visible, crystallizing in the air. "Getting something on thermal," called out Dr. Lisa Chen from the lead vehicle. "Multiple signatures, moving in from all directions." I looked at my monitor. The thermal images showed figures approaching our perimeter, dozens of them. They moved in perfect synchronization, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. But they were human-shaped, mostly. "Are those people?" someone whispered. They weren't. As they got closer, the thermal imaging revealed the truth. The heat signatures were wrong. Too hot in some places, too cold in others, as if their bodies couldn't decide what temperature they should be. And their movements, when you watched closely, were subtly off. Joints bending in directions joints shouldn't bend. Gaits that suggested different skeletal structures trying to mimic human locomotion. Webb's voice crackled over the radio. "Everyone stay in your vehicles. Keep recording. This is exactly what we came for." The figures stopped at the edge of our sensor perimeter, just beyond the reach of our lights. They stood there, motionless, and I realized they were studying us just as we were studying them. Learning. Cataloging. Then one of them stepped forward into the light. It was wearing Marcus Webb's face. Not a mask, not makeup. Webb's actual face, complete with his wire-rimmed glasses and the small scar on his left cheek from a childhood accident. But it was wrong. The face was too large for the skull beneath it, stretched and distorted like a photograph wrapped around a sphere. And the eyes. God, the eyes were holes that went back and back and back, deeper than any skull should allow. "That's not possible," Webb's voice said over the radio. "I'm right here. That's not..." The thing wearing Webb's face tilted its head, mimicking confusion. Then it smiled, and the smile kept going, stretching wider and wider until the face began to tear at the corners of the mouth. Beneath the splitting skin, I saw something that looked like static, like the visual noise on a dead television channel, but alive and writhing. More figures stepped into the light. Each one wore a face I recognized. Lisa Chen, Tom Brightwater, the foreman, me. I was looking at myself, at a thing that had somehow stolen my appearance and was wearing it like a costume. It moved like I moved, breathed like I breathed. But its eyes were empty, and when it opened its mouth, no sound came out, just a soft clicking, like insect mandibles. "Drive!" someone screamed. "Drive, drive, drive!" The vehicles roared to life. We scattered, breaking formation, fleeing back toward the ranch house. In my side mirror, I watched the figures give chase. They ran on all fours now, abandoning the pretense of humanity, their stolen faces flapping loose like flags in the wind. We made it back to the ranch house and barricaded ourselves inside. All 12 of us. We counted. 12 people. But when I looked around the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that the number was wrong. That somewhere in our panicked flight, something had slipped in among us. Webb was ranting, pacing, trying to rationalize what we'd seen. Mass hallucination. Infrasound can cause visual distortions. The magnetic fields could be affecting our neural processing. "Marcus," Lisa said quietly, "your glasses." He touched his face. His glasses were there, perched on his nose where they'd always been. "Then what was that thing wearing?" she whispered. We spent the rest of the night in silence, watching each other, trying to determine who was real and who might be something else. Every gesture, every word, every breath became suspect. I caught myself studying my own reflection in the darkened window, searching for some sign that I was still myself. At dawn, Tom Brightwater was gone. His room was empty, his belongings untouched. We searched the ranch, calling his name, but found nothing. No tracks, no signs of struggle. 3 days later, we found him. He was standing in the north pasture, motionless, facing away from us. We approached cautiously, calling out. He didn't respond. When we got close enough to touch him, I saw why. His skin had been removed. Not violently. There was no blood, no trauma. It had been taken off in one piece, like a suit, leaving behind something that was anatomically correct, but fundamentally wrong. The muscles were the right color, the bones visible in the right places, but the arrangement was off. As if something had studied human anatomy from pictures and done its best to recreate it, but had never actually seen the real thing. The thing that had been Tom turned to face us. Its lipless mouth moved, and Tom's voice came out, perfect in every detail. It's beautiful, Sarah. When you stop fighting it, when you let it in, it shows you what you really are, what we all really are. Just patterns, just information, and information wants to be free. It reached up and touched its own flayed face with fingers that had too many joints. It's been trying to tell us. The cattle, the lights, the faces. It's all communication. It's trying to teach us how to be like it, how to slip between skins, how to be more. Webb pulled his gun and fired. 3 shots, center mass. The thing that had been Tom didn't fall. The bullets passed through it, leaving holes that didn't bleed. Instead, the holes filled with that same static I'd seen before, that living visual noise. It smiled with Tom's flayed face and walked away, moving in that boneless, flowing gait. We watched it go, too terrified to follow, too horrified to look away. That was 6 days ago. Since then, 3 more team members have disappeared. We find them eventually, standing in the fields, wearing their own skins wrong. They speak in their own voices, telling us how beautiful it is, how we should stop resisting, how the transformation is inevitable. Webb locked himself in the lab yesterday. He's been running tests on his own tissue samples, checking and rechecking his DNA. I heard him crying last night, saying over and over, "I'm still me, I'm still me, I'm still me." But this morning, I saw him in the pasture, standing with the others, wearing his skin like a coat that didn't quite fit. And he's still in the lab. I can hear him moving around, crying, insisting he's real. There are 2 Marcus Webbs now. Maybe there always were. Maybe there are 2 of all of us, and we just never noticed before. Maybe the ranch doesn't create these things. Maybe it just reveals them, shows us what we've always been, beneath the skin we think is ours. I'm writing this because I need to document what's happening, because someone needs to know. But I'm also writing it because I'm not sure anymore if I'm the Sarah Vance who arrived at this ranch 7 weeks ago, or if I'm something else that's learned to be her so perfectly that even I can't tell the difference. Last night, I looked in the mirror and saw myself blink. But I hadn't blinked. The reflection had moved on its own, just for a moment, just long enough for me to notice. This morning, I found a piece of skin on my pillow. It was mine. I recognized the birthmark on the wrist, but my wrist is fine. The birthmark is still there. How many skins can one person have? The orbs are outside my window now. They've been there for hours, pulsing with that bioluminescent glow, and I can see figures moving between them. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All wearing faces I recognize. All wearing faces that might be real, or might be stolen, or might be something in between. One of them is waving at me. It has my face, my exact face, and it's smiling in a way I've never smiled, with a joy I've never felt. It's inviting me out. And God help me, I want to go. I want to understand. I want to slip out of this skin that suddenly feels too tight, too confining, too singular. I want to know what it's like to be more than one thing, to be everything, to be the pattern beneath the pattern. Webb, one of the Webbs, is calling for an evacuation. He says we're leaving at dawn. He says we'll burn the research and never speak of this place again. But I don't think we're leaving. I don't think we can. Because I looked at the calendar this morning, and it said day 47. But I've been writing day 47 at the top of my reports for the last 6 days. Time is wrong here. Or maybe time is finally right, and everywhere else is wrong. I can hear them outside now. All of them. All of us. Calling in voices that sound like mine, like Webb's, like everyone who's ever set foot on this ranch. They're not threatening. They're not angry. They're just patient, waiting for us to understand, waiting for us to accept what we're becoming, what we've always been becoming. The orbs are so beautiful, like stars that fell to earth and learned to dream. I think I'll go outside now. I think I'll meet myself, all of myselves. I think it's time to stop pretending there's a difference. The following was found written in the margin of Dr. Vance's final report, in handwriting that matched hers exactly, but was written upside down. We are still here. We are still watching. We are still learning. Come back. Come back. Come back. We have so many faces to show you. We have your face. We've always had your face. We're wearing it right now. Can you feel us wearing it? Can you feel how well it fits? The report was discovered in the abandoned ranch house 3 months after the research team's disappearance. No bodies were ever found. Satellite imagery from the period shows unusual thermal signatures in the northwest quadrant. Dozens of human-shaped heat sources, all standing perfectly still, all facing the same direction. When investigators arrived, the signatures were gone. But the cattle mutilations continue. And sometimes, late at night, the security cameras capture figures moving through the pastures. They wear the faces of the missing researchers. They wave at the cameras. They smile. And if you watch long enough, you'll see your own face among them, smiling back, inviting you to understand what they've understood. That skin is just a suggestion. That identity is just a habit. That beneath everything we think we are, there's something else waiting. Something patient. Something hungry. Something that's been here all along, wearing the world like a coat, waiting for us to notice the seams. The hair bundle. The shovel hit something that wasn't dirt. Tom Whitehorse had been meaning to fix the loose step for weeks, and Maria had finally put her foot down that morning. "Before someone breaks their neck," she'd said, handing him his coffee with that look that meant the discussion was over. He dug down about 8 inches when the blade scraped against something wrapped in rotted cloth. At first, he thought it was an old feed sack, maybe something his grandfather had buried decades ago when this was still his land. But when Tom pulled it free, the weight was wrong. Too dense, too deliberate. The cloth fell away in his hands, and he nearly dropped what was inside. Hair. Human hair. Thick black strands wound together in an intricate braid, then coiled into a tight bundle about the size of his fist. Someone had bound it with what looked like sinew, wrapped so many times the hair bulged between the bindings like flesh squeezed too tight. The smell hit him then. Not decay exactly, but something organic and wrong, like meat left in a hot car. Tom had grown up on this land, in the shadow of the Chuska Mountains. His grandfather had taught him which stories to respect and which shadows to avoid. He knew what this was, or at least what it might be. He should have burned it right there. Instead, he wrapped it back in the cloth and put it in a coffee can in the shed. He told himself he'd ask Uncle Raymond about it, see if the old man knew the proper way to dispose of it. Raymond still knew the old ways, still spoke Dene when Tom had mostly forgotten. That night, Tom dreamed. He was walking across his own property, but the perspective was wrong, too low to the ground, the gate uneven, almost loping. He could see his house in the distance, yellow light spilling from the kitchen window where Maria was washing dishes. He wanted to call out to her, but his mouth wouldn't form the words. His throat produced only a wet, clicking sound. He woke at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat. At breakfast, his daughter Sarah pushed her eggs around her plate, dark circles under her 13-year-old eyes. "Bad dream?" Maria asked. "I was outside," Sarah said quietly, walking toward the house, but I wasn't me. Tom's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. "I had the same dream," Maria said, her voice careful. "I was watching our house, watching myself through the kitchen window." Their son Marcus looked up from his phone, his face pale. "The clicking sound," he said. "Did you guys hear the clicking sound?" The temperature in the kitchen seemed to drop 10 degrees. That day, Tom drove to Uncle Raymond's place, the coffee can rattling in the passenger seat. But Raymond's truck was gone, and his neighbor said he'd driven down to Shiprock for a healing ceremony. Wouldn't be back for 3 days. Tom sat in his truck for a long time, staring at the coffee can. Then he drove home and buried it in the far pasture, 6 feet deep, and piled rocks on top. It didn't matter. The dreams came again that night, stronger now, more vivid. Tom was closer to the house this time. He could see through the living room window, could see himself sitting on the couch watching television, could see Maria beside him, her hand resting on his knee. The perspective shifted, tilted, as if the dreamer was cocking its head, studying them, learning them. And then the dream self moved, circled the house slowly, peering in each window. Sarah's room, where she lay sleeping. Marcus's room, where he sat at his computer, headphones on. Back to the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom. Mapping, memorizing. When Tom woke, Maria was already sitting up, her hand pressed to her mouth. "It was at Marcus's window," she whispered. "I could see him through the glass. He couldn't see me. Whatever we were. But I could see him so clearly." They gathered in the kitchen again, all 4 of them, as dawn broke gray and cold over the mountains. Nobody had to ask if the others had dreamed. They could see it in each other's faces. "What does it want?" Sarah asked, and she sounded very young. Tom didn't answer. He was remembering something his grandfather had told him once, about the Yi Nald Lushi, the Skinwalkers, how they used personal items to create a link. Hair was best. Hair held the strongest connection. And if they could make you dream their dreams, see through their eyes, they could learn everything about you. Your patterns, your weaknesses, your fears. They could wear you down from the inside. "We're not sleeping here tonight," Tom said. "Pack bags. We're going to a motel in Farmington." But Maria shook her head slowly. "Tom, I don't think distance matters. Not with this." She was right. In the Farmington motel, they dreamed together again. The perspective had changed. Now they were inside the house. Their house, 60 miles away. Moving through the rooms. The thing's breathing was loud in the dream, wet and labored. It ran its hands. Were they hands? Along the walls, the furniture, the family photos on the mantel. It lifted one of Sarah's stuffed animals to its face and inhaled deeply. In the dream, they could feel its satisfaction, its hunger. When they woke, tangled together in the motel beds, Sarah was crying silently. Marcus had his arms wrapped around his knees, rocking slightly. Maria's hand found Tom's and squeezed so hard it hurt. "It's been in our house," she said. They drove back at sunrise. Tom had his grandfather's rifle, though he knew bullets wouldn't help. Not with this. The house looked normal in the morning light, undisturbed. But when Tom unlocked the front door, he smelled it immediately. That same organic wrongness from the hair bundle, but stronger now, recent. They found the tracks in Sarah's room, footprints in the carpet, still visible in the early light. They started human-sized by the window, but as they crossed the room, they changed. Elongated. The toes spread too wide. By the time they reached Sarah's bed, they were something else entirely. The thing had stood over her bed, had watched her sleeping body while her mind was trapped in its perspective, forced to watch her own vulnerability from its eyes. "We need to leave," Marcus said. "We need to leave right now." But Tom was staring at the tracks, at the way they led back to the window, and simply stopped. As if the thing had stepped through the glass without breaking it, or had never been physical at all. That night, because where could they go that would matter, they tried to stay awake. They sat together in the living room, all the lights on, drinking coffee and energy drinks. They made it until 2 a.m. The dream was different this time. They were standing at the foot of Tom and Maria's bed, looking down at their own sleeping bodies. All four of them, huddled together in the master bedroom, having finally succumbed to exhaustion. The perspective shifted down, and they could see hands. Human hands, but wrong. The fingers too long, the nails too thick, reaching toward Maria's face. And then, with a jolt of horror that ripped through all four of them simultaneously, they felt it. The thing wasn't just showing them what it saw. It was showing them what it was about to do. Tom woke up screaming, his hands flying to Maria's face, checking for wounds. She was awake too, gasping, her eyes wild. Sarah and Marcus were already sitting up, their faces mirrors of terror. "It's learning us," Maria whispered. "It's learning how to be us." Tom looked at his family, his wife, his children, their faces pale in the lamplight. He thought about the hair bundle, about how much hair had been in it. Enough for 4 people, maybe. Enough for a family. He thought about the dreams, about seeing through the thing's eyes. But what if it wasn't just one way? What if, while they were learning to see through its perspective, it was learning to see through theirs. What if the dreams weren't a warning? What if they were an exchange? Marcus stood up suddenly, his movements oddly fluid. He walked to the window and stared out at the darkness, his head tilting at an angle that was almost right, but not quite. "Marcus?" Sarah said. He turned back to them, and for just a moment, just a fraction of a second, his smile was too wide, and his eyes caught the light like an animal's. "I'm tired," he said, his voice perfectly normal. "I think I'll sleep better in my own room." He walked out, and they heard his bedroom door close. Tom, Maria, and Sarah looked at each other. In the silence, they could hear something moving in Marcus's room. Footsteps. But the rhythm was wrong. The weight distribution was off. "Should we check on him?" Sarah whispered. Before anyone could answer, they heard Marcus's voice from behind his door. But he was talking to himself. Or talking to something. The words were in a language Tom almost recognized. Something old. Something his grandfather might have known. And underneath it was that wet, clicking sound from the dreams. Maria's hand found Tom's again. Her palm was cold. "When we dream tonight," she said softly, "whose eyes will we see through?" Tom had no answer. He could only sit there, listening to his son's voice speaking words that weren't quite words, and wait for sleep to claim them again. Because it would claim them. Eventually, it always did. And when it did, they would dream. They would all dream the same dream, from the same perspective. The only question was, which side of the window would they be on? The Animal in the Schoolyard. My name is Marcus Chen, and I'm in 5th grade at Pinewood Elementary. I'm writing this down because I need someone to believe me. And maybe if I get it all on paper, it'll make sense. Or maybe it won't. Maybe nothing about what's been happening makes sense, and that's the scariest part. It started 3 weeks ago, right after Halloween. I remember because I was still eating my leftover candy at lunch. Those little Tootsie Rolls that nobody really likes, but you eat anyway because it's candy. That's when I first heard Mr. Hendricks and Miss Lopez talking in the hallway outside our classroom. I have really good hearing. My mom says I have bat ears, which used to make me feel special, but now just makes me notice things I wish I didn't. Mrs. Patterson was passing out our math worksheets, and everyone was groaning about long division. But I heard the custodians talking in low voices just outside the door. "Biggest prints I've ever seen," Mr. Hendricks was saying. His voice sounded weird, tight, like when you're trying not to sound scared, but you are. "Had to be a bear, right? But we're nowhere near the mountains." "Bears don't arrange themselves in circles," Miss Lopez said. "These prints, they were all around the merry-go-round, like something was walking around and around it. I felt my stomach do this flip thing it does when I'm nervous. I'm nervous a lot, actually. My parents took me to a doctor about it last year, and she said I have anxiety, which is just a fancy word for being scared of stuff more than other kids. I take deep breaths when it gets bad. I was taking a lot of deep breaths that day. At recess, I went straight to the merry-go-round instead of playing kickball like usual. The other kids think I'm weird anyway, because I'd rather read than play sports, so nobody noticed. The ground around the merry-go-round was all scuffed up from where the custodians had tried to rake it smooth. But I could still see the edges of something, these huge indentations in the dirt and wood chips. I knelt down to look closer. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. The prints were massive, way bigger than my dad's feet, and he wears size 12 shoes. These were maybe twice that, and the weird thing was the shape. They looked like paw prints. I could see where claws had dug into the ground, but they were too long, too stretched out, like someone had taken a dog's paw and pulled it until it was the wrong shape. "What you looking at, Marcus?" I jumped so hard I bit my tongue. It was Aisha from my class. She's nice to me, which makes her basically my only friend. "Nothing," I said, but my voice came out squeaky. She looked at the prints, then at me. "Those are freaky, right? My mom said they're probably from a dog that got loose." "That's not a dog print," I said. I know I sounded like a know-it-all, which is another reason kids don't like me, but I couldn't help it. I'd read every animal book in our library. Dogs don't have paws this big, and look! I pointed at one of the clearer prints. The toes are wrong. There's too many of them. Aisha squinted at it, then shrugged. "Adults will figure it out," she said, and ran off to join the kickball game. But that's the thing. The adults weren't figuring it out. They were just getting more confused. Every morning for the next week, there were new prints. Not just around the merry-go-round anymore. They showed up by the basketball hoops, around the big oak tree where we're not supposed to climb, but everyone does anyway. By the back door to the cafeteria. Always in circles or strange patterns, like whatever made them was looking for something. Principal Davidson made an announcement that we weren't allowed on the playground before school anymore, only at recess when teachers were watching. Some of the kids were excited, like it was a mystery or something, but I felt sick every time I thought about it. I started watching Mr. Hendricks and Miss Lopez more carefully. Adults think kids don't notice stuff, but we do. We notice everything. And I noticed that they looked tired, like really tired, with dark circles under their eyes. And they kept having these quiet conversations that would stop the second a teacher came near. On Thursday of the second week, I stayed after school to help Mrs. Patterson organize the classroom library. It's quiet work, and she lets me do it because she knows I like books more than people. I was shelving the last of the chapter books when I heard voices in the hallway again. This time, it was Principal Davidson with Mr. Hendricks, and they weren't trying to be quiet. "I watched the footage 3 times, Principal Davidson was saying. She sounded angry and scared at the same time. "You're telling me that's what you saw too?"
"I don't know what I saw," Mr. Hendricks said. "But it wasn't an animal. It looked like a man. A naked man, crouching at the edge of the camera's view. Just crouching there. For hours." My hands froze on the book I was holding. Some fantasy novel about dragons that suddenly seemed way less scary than real life. "But the prints," Principal Davidson started. "I know," Mr. Hendricks interrupted. "The prints are from an animal, a big one. But the footage shows a man. It doesn't make any sense." They moved away down the hall, and I stood there in the quiet classroom, my heart doing that hammer thing again. I did my breathing exercises, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, but they didn't help much. A naked man crouching at the edge of the camera. Animal prints everywhere. I went home and did something I knew I shouldn't do. I Googled animal prints but man on camera. My parents have parental controls on my computer, but they're not very good at technology, and I'd figured out how to get around them months ago. I'm not supposed to know how to do that, but being nervous makes you careful, and being careful makes you good at noticing details, like passwords written on sticky notes. The search results were bad. A lot of them were about skinwalkers. I'd heard about skinwalkers before, from this creepypasta site I'm definitely not supposed to be on. They're from Navajo legends, witches that can turn into animals. But the more I read,
the more my stomach hurt, because the descriptions matched. Things that look like animals but aren't quite right. Things that can look like people, too. Things that circle around places, looking for a way in. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about something crouching at the edge of a camera frame, just waiting. The next day at school, I couldn't focus on anything. During math, I kept staring out the window at the playground. During reading, I barely heard Mrs. Patterson talking about metaphors and similes. At lunch, I didn't eat my sandwich. "You okay?" Aisha asked me. "You look like you're going to throw up." "I'm fine," I lied. But I wasn't fine. Because during afternoon recess, I saw something. We were all outside, and I was sitting under the oak tree with my book. I wasn't actually reading it, just holding it and pretending. Most of the other kids were playing on the equipment or running around. The teachers were clustered together near the building, talking and occasionally glancing at us. That's when I noticed the man. He was standing at the very edge of the woods that border our playground, maybe 50 feet from the fence. Just standing there, perfectly still, watching us. He was too far away for me to see his face clearly, but I could tell he wasn't wearing a shirt. Maybe not wearing anything at all, though the bushes blocked the lower part of him. My whole body went cold. I looked around to see if any of the teachers had noticed, but they were all facing the other direction. The other kids were playing, oblivious. I looked back at the woods. The man was gone. No, not gone. He was in a different spot now, about 20 feet to the left of where he'd been. Still at the edge of the woods, still watching. But he'd moved without me seeing him move, which was impossible because I'd only looked away for a few seconds. I stood up, my book falling into the dirt. My legs felt shaky. The man moved again. This time I saw it. But it wasn't like normal moving. It was like he flickered from one spot to another, like a video game character glitching. 1 second he was standing by a pine tree. The next he was crouched next to a different tree 15 feet away. When he crouched, I saw his back, and that's when I knew something was really, really wrong. His spine was too long. It curved in a way that human spines don't curve, like there were too many vertebrae. And his arms, when he crouched, his arms hung down almost to the ground, way too long for his body. I wanted to scream, but my throat was closed up tight. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I just stood there, staring, while this thing that looked almost like a man but wasn't, flickered between the trees, getting closer to the fence with each movement. Then the recess bell rang, and I jumped so hard I almost fell over. When I looked back at the woods, the man was gone. Really gone this time. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? I barely believed myself, and I'd seen it. Plus, I'm the nervous kid, the anxious kid. If I told a teacher I'd seen a weird man in the woods, they'd probably just call my parents and suggest increasing my medication. But that night, I heard on the news that someone's dog had gone missing from a farm about 2 miles from school. A big dog, a German Shepherd. They found its collar in the woods, torn to pieces. The prints kept appearing every morning. I started getting to school early, before the bell, even though we weren't supposed to be on the playground. I'd stand at the window of the front hallway and watch Mr. Hendricks and Miss Lopez examining the new prints, their faces getting more worried each day. The prints were changing, getting more frequent, and they were starting to look less like animal prints and more like something else, something in between. Some of them almost looked like handprints, but with claws. Like something was switching back and forth, not quite able to hold one shape. On Wednesday of the 3rd week, Aisha didn't come to school. Her mom called and said she was sick. But at lunch,
I overheard Mrs. Patterson telling another teacher that Aisha had woken up screaming about something, watching her through her bedroom window. Aisha lived only half a mile from school. That afternoon, Principal Davidson called an assembly. She stood on the stage in the gym and told us that until further notice, all after-school activities were canceled. No more staying late. No more morning drop-offs before the bell. Parents had to pick us up right at dismissal. "We're taking precautions," she said, smiling in that fake way adults smile when they're trying not to scare you, but they're scared themselves. "There's been some unusual animal activity in the area, and we want everyone to be safe." I raised my hand. I don't usually raise my hand in assemblies. Too many people looking at you. But I couldn't help it. "Yes, Marcus," Principal Davidson said. "What kind of animal?" My voice echoed in the gym, sounding small and scared. She hesitated. "We're not entirely sure. That's why we're being careful." "Is it a skinwalker?" I asked. The gym got really quiet. All the kids turned to look at me. Principal Davidson's smile got tighter. "That's... Marcus, skinwalkers are just legends, stories. There's probably a perfectly logical explanation for..." "But the security footage," I interrupted, which I know is rude, but I couldn't stop myself. "It shows a man, right? But there are animal prints. How can it be both?" Principal Davidson's face went pale. "How do you know about the security footage?" I realized I'd messed up. I heard Mr. Hendricks talking about it." She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to decide what to say. Finally, she just said, "We're handling it, Marcus. Everyone just needs to follow the new rules and stay safe." But we weren't safe. I knew we weren't safe. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. I kept thinking about the thing in the woods, the way it had moved, the way its body was wrong. I thought about Aisha's bedroom window. I thought about the missing dog. Around midnight, I heard something outside my house. My bedroom is on the second floor, which should have made me feel safer, but it didn't. I heard this scratching sound, like claws on wood. Then footsteps on the roof. Heavy, deliberate footsteps that were too slow to be an animal, but too strange to be a person. I pulled my blanket over my head and did my breathing exercises, counting in my head, trying to pretend I was somewhere else. The footsteps moved across the roof, right above my room. Then they stopped. Everything was quiet for maybe 30 seconds. Then I heard it at my window, a soft tapping sound, like someone knocking very gently on the glass. I didn't look. I kept my head under the blanket and squeezed my eyes shut and counted my breaths until morning came. When I got to school the next day, there were police cars in the parking lot. Not just one or two, 5 of them, plus an animal control van. Mr. Hendricks was talking to the officers, pointing at the ground, at the woods, at the building. The prints were everywhere now, all over the playground, the parking lot, even on the roof of the school. And they weren't in circles anymore. They led right up to the doors and windows, like something had been testing them, trying to find a way inside. I saw one of the police officers holding up his phone, showing something to his partner. Even from far away, I could see it was a photo of the security footage. The other officer shook his head, looking disturbed. They kept us inside all day. No recess. No going outside for any reason.
Mrs. Patterson tried to make it seem fun, like we were having an indoor party. But I could see how she kept glancing at the windows, her smile not reaching her eyes. At lunch, I sat with Aisha, who'd come back to school, but was really quiet. "Did you see it?" I asked her quietly. "The thing at your window?" She looked at me, and her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "My mom said it was just a nightmare. But you saw something." She nodded slowly. "It looked like a person. Like a man standing in our backyard. But when I turned on my light, it was on all fours. And then it was gone." She wiped her eyes. "Marcus, what if it comes back?" I didn't have an answer for her. That afternoon, they sent us home early. My mom picked me up, and she looked worried but tried to hide it. In the car, she told me that they were closing the school for the rest of the week, while experts investigated the situation. "What kind of experts?" I asked. "Wildlife experts," she said. But I could tell she didn't really believe that would help. It's been 3 days since they closed school. I'm writing this in my room, during the day, with all the lights on. I haven't heard the footsteps on the roof again, but I know it's still out there. Whatever it is. Last night, the news said they found more torn collars in the woods, 3 more dogs missing. And this morning, I saw on a community Facebook page, I'm not supposed to be on Facebook, but remember what I said about parental controls, that someone spotted a large, deformed animal near the school at dawn. But when police arrived, all they found were human footprints in the dirt. Human footprints that turned into paw prints halfway across the playground. I don't think they're going to catch it. I don't think they can catch it. Because how do you catch something that's both and neither? Something that's wrong in a way that doesn't make sense. My mom keeps telling me everything's going to be okay, that I shouldn't worry, that the police and animal control have everything under control. But I can see it in her eyes. She's scared too. She just doesn't want to admit it. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know what I saw, what I know. The adults are trying to explain it away, trying to make it make sense. But some things don't make sense. Some things are just wrong, and no amount of logical explanation will make them right. There's something in the woods behind Pinewood Elementary. Something that walks on 4 legs and 2 legs. Something that watches us with eyes that are too aware, too intelligent. Something that's been circling closer and closer, testing boundaries, looking for a way in. And I think it's getting hungry. I don't know what's going to happen when they reopen school. I don't know if I'll even go back. My parents will probably make me. They don't understand how serious this is. They think I'm just being anxious again, letting my imagination run wild. But I know what I saw. I know what's out there. And I know it's still watching. If you're reading this and you live near Pinewood Elementary, be careful. Lock your doors and windows. Don't go outside after dark. And if you see someone standing at the edge of the woods, someone who doesn't move quite right, someone whose body is just slightly wrong, don't look too long. Don't let it know you've seen it. And whatever you do, don't let it know you're afraid. Because I think that's what it wants. I think that's what it's been waiting for. My name is Marcus Chen, and I'm in 5th grade at Pinewood Elementary, and I'm more scared than I've ever been in my life. Borrowed boyfriend. The first time I saw James on the barn roof, I was washing dishes. He'd been sitting at the kitchen table behind me not 30 seconds before, scrolling through his phone while I scrubbed at burnt cheese on a casserole dish. I glanced out the window above the sink, and there he was, standing at the roof's peak in his gray Henley and jeans, hands in his pockets, looking toward the tree line. I turned around. James was still at the table, thumb moving across his screen. Did you just go outside? I asked. He didn't look up. What? Never mind. When I looked back at the barn, the roof was empty. A crow lifted off from the weather vane, and I told myself that's what I'd seen. The dark shape of a bird against the sky, my tired brain filling in the rest. We've been fighting more lately. Small things that accumulated like dust. He wanted to sell the property and move closer to town. I wanted to stay. He thought I was becoming isolated out here. I thought he'd stopped listening. I went back to the dishes. 2 days later, I saw him by the fence line while we were eating lunch. James sat across from me, chewing a sandwich, telling me about a job lead in the city. I was half listening, watching his mouth move, when movement caught my eye through the dining room window. James stood at the far fence, maybe 200 yards out, one hand on a post. He was looking at the house, at me specifically. I could feel it even at that distance. He raised his other hand in a wave. The gesture was wrong, too slow, fingers spread too wide, held too long. "Are you even listening?" James said. I blinked. He was still sitting across from me, sandwich halfway to his mouth, irritation creasing his forehead. "There's someone out there," I said. He turned to look. Where? The fence line was empty, just brown grass and the gray posts marching toward the horizon. I thought I saw... I stopped. His expression had shifted into something patient and concerned. The look you give someone who's not quite well. "Nothing. Sorry. What were you saying?" He studied me for a moment longer than comfortable. "Maybe you should call Dr. Reeves. When's the last time you adjusted your medication?" "I'm fine." "Sarah?" "I said I'm fine." We finished lunch in silence. That night, I woke to use the bathroom and saw him through the bedroom window. James stood in the irrigation ditch behind the house, water up to his knees, head tilted back to look at our window. The motion sensor light had clicked on, illuminating him in harsh white. He wasn't moving, just standing there in the water, in his sleep clothes, staring up. I could hear James breathing beside me in bed, the slight whistle in his exhale that he always denied having. I watched the figure in the ditch. It watched back. Then it smiled, James's smile, the one that crinkled his eyes, except the timing was off. The smile came first, then the eye crinkle, like someone performing the steps out of order. The motion light clicked off. I lay back down, heart hammering, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. "You're seeing things," James said the next morning. We were in the kitchen again. Always the kitchen, like we were trapped in a loop. "You keep zoning out, staring at nothing. You're not sleeping." "I'm sleeping fine." "You woke up 3 times last night. I counted." "How would you know? You were asleep." He set down his coffee mug with deliberate care. "Sarah, I'm worried about you. This place, it's too isolated. You're out here all day with nothing but your thoughts. It's not healthy." "So now I'm crazy." "I didn't say that. You're thinking it." He rubbed his face, and I noticed how tired he looked. When had he started looking so tired? "I think we should go stay with my sister for a few days. Get you out of here. See how you feel." "I don't want to leave." "Of course you don't." He stood, chair scraping against the floor. "I'm going to fix the gate on the south pasture. We'll talk about this later." He walked out the back door, and I watched him cross the yard toward the barn, his gait familiar, his shoulders set in that particular way that meant he was angry, but trying not to show it. Then I saw him coming around the side of the house from the opposite direction. This James moved differently. Not wrong, exactly, but like someone who'd learned to walk by watching videos. Each step precisely placed. He stopped when he saw me through the window, and we looked at each other. He tilted his head, curious. Then he smiled that out-of-order smile and continued walking, following the path the real James had taken, disappearing behind the barn. I ran outside. "James!" He emerged from behind the barn, toolbox in hand. "What?" "Did you see—" I stopped. He was alone. "Did anyone walk past you just now?" "No. Why?" "I saw someone. I saw you. I mean, someone who looked like you." His expression closed off. "Sarah, stop. I'm not making this up." "Then what are you doing? Because from where I'm standing, you're either having some kind of breakdown, or you're trying to manipulate me into staying in this godforsaken place by acting... Acting what? Crazy?" "I didn't say that. You keep not saying it." He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his eyes, a decision being made. "I'm going to call my sister. We're leaving tomorrow, whether you like it or not." He walked away, and I stood in the yard, wind pulling at my hair, feeling the weight of the empty land around us. That evening, I saw him everywhere. Standing in the empty horse stall when James was in the shower, sitting in the truck bed when James was cooking dinner, crouched in the garden when James was on the phone with his sister, his voice low and worried, words like episode and intervention drifting through the door. Each time, the other James watched me with patient interest, like I was a puzzle he was learning to solve. It's past midnight now. James is asleep. The real James, I'm almost certain, though I've checked 3 times, watching the rise and fall of his chest, looking for some tell that would prove he's the wrong one. I'm at the kitchen window again. I seem to spend half my life here now, looking out at the dark property, waiting. He's standing at the edge of the porch light's reach, close enough that I can see his face clearly. He looks exactly like James. Not similar, not close, but exact. Same small scar above his left eyebrow, same crooked bottom tooth, same everything. Except he's been standing there for 40 minutes without moving, without blinking, just watching me watch him. Now he's raising his hand. Not waving, beckoning. His mouth moves, and though I can't hear him through the glass, I can read his lips. "Come here." And the terrible thing, the thing that's been building in me through all of this, is that I recognize something in his stillness, his patience, his absolute attention. It's the way James used to look at me 3 years ago, before the fights, before the distance, before we became 2 people sharing space instead of a life. This thing wearing his face is looking at me the way I've wanted James to look at me for months. He beckons again. Behind me, the real James shifts in his sleep, murmuring something I can't make out. Outside, the other one waits. I'm putting on my shoes. I'm unlocking the door. I don't know what he is or what he wants, but he's been so patient, and he sees me, really sees me. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all I've wanted this whole time, to be seen, to be chosen, to matter enough that something would go to all this trouble. The door opens easily, without a sound. He's smiling now, the right smile, in the right order, like he's finally learned how. I step off the porch. He extends his hand, and I understand with sudden, crystalline clarity that this is not a haunting. This is a courtship, and I'm walking toward him, across the dark yard, leaving the house and the sleeping man and my whole life behind. Because whatever he is, he came for me. He chose me. He's been calling to me in the only way he knows how. His fingers are cold when they close around mine, but his grip is gentle. And when he leads me toward the tree line, I follow. Behind us, the house grows smaller, a lit window in an ocean of dark. I don't look back.
Call from my own number. The phone lit up at 2:47 a.m. with my own number on the screen. I'd been awake anyway, sitting in the kitchen with my laptop open to Mom's email account. The funeral home had needed her password for something. I couldn't remember what anymore. I'd been scrolling through years of forwards and pharmacy reminders, not reading them, just looking. The phone buzzed again. Same number. Mine. I picked it up. Hello? Silence. Not empty silence. I could hear something. Breathing, maybe. The faint static of an open line. Hello? I said again. Danny. My mother's voice. I didn't move. The laptop screen had gone dark. I could see my reflection in it. Phone pressed to my ear. Danny, it's Mom. The cadence was right. The slight rasp she'd had the last few years. The way she dropped the volume on the second syllable of my name. I'd heard it 1,000 times. More. Come outside, honey. My mouth was dry. Who is this? A pause. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Long enough that I almost spoke again. It's Mom. I need you to come outside. My mother died, I said. My voice sounded normal. Flat, but normal. She died 9 days ago. Another pause. Shorter this time. Then, I know you cleaned out the hall closet on Tuesday. You found my blue cardigan, the one with the cigarette burn on the sleeve. You kept it. I had found that cardigan. I hadn't told anyone I'd kept it. It was upstairs in my dresser, still smelling faintly of her perfume and the mothballs she'd stored it with. How do you know that? Come outside, Danny. I'm waiting. Where did you get this information? You need to come outside now. The same gentle insistence she'd use when I was young and refusing to go to school. Not angry, patient, certain I would comply eventually. What's outside? Silence again. Longer this time. I pulled the phone away from my ear and checked the screen. The call timer was running. 1:47. Still, my own number displayed at the top. I put it back to my ear. Hello? I'm outside, honey. Come see me. Tell me something else, I said. Tell me something only she would know. You were afraid of the basement. When you were 7, you told me there was a man down there who watched you from behind the furnace. I believed you. I never made you go down there alone again. I had told her that. I'd forgotten about it until now, 25 years buried. But I had told her, and she had believed me. And she'd done her own laundry in the basement for years, rather than send me down there. Please come outside. My hand was steady. That surprised me. I stood up, phone still at my ear, and walked to the front window. The street was empty, sodium lights casting orange pools on the pavement. My car in the driveway. Nothing else. I don't see anything. The backyard, Danny. I'm in the backyard. I moved through the dark house to the kitchen, to the window over the sink. I didn't turn on any lights. The backyard was smaller than the front, enclosed by a privacy fence I'd helped her install 3 summers ago. The motion sensor light was off. I don't see you. Look at the fence, by the gate. I looked. At first, nothing. Then I saw it. Someone was standing there. A figure, dark against the darker fence, exactly where the gate was. Motionless. The proportions were wrong somehow. Too tall, or too thin, or the head at a strange angle. I couldn't make out details, but I could see it was there. Definitely there. Do you see me? The voice asked.
I see someone. Come outside. No. A pause. The longest yet. Maybe 10 seconds. Why not? You're dead, I said. You're dead, and I buried you. And whoever this is, whatever this is, you're not my mother. The figure by the fence didn't move. I watched it. Phone pressed hard against my ear now, my other hand gripping the edge of the sink. You're right, the voice said. Still her voice. Still that exact inflection. I'm not. The line went dead. The figure was gone. I stared at the empty space where it had been. The motion light stayed off. Nothing moved. I checked my phone. Call ended. 4:23 duration. I opened my recent calls. There it was. My own number. Incoming call. 2:47 a.m. I locked the doors. All of them. I checked every window. I sat in the kitchen with the lights on until the sun came up. At 6:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. Voicemail notification. I hadn't heard it ring. I played the message on speaker. Static first, then her voice, clear and close. I'll try again tomorrow night, Danny. I'll keep trying until you come outside. A pause. I'm very patient. You know that. The message ended. I played it again. Same words, same voice. I saved it. I'm still sitting here with the phone in front of me. The voicemail saved. The sun fully up now. Trying to decide what I'm going to do when it gets dark again.
The blue cardigan is still upstairs in my dresser. I haven't checked, but I know it's there. I know it's there because I put it there, and because she told me about it, and because whatever called me last night knew things it shouldn't know. Tonight, the phone will ring again. I don't know if I'll answer.
Border Fence Runner. I've worked this sector for 6 years. Sector 9, they call it on the maps. 43 miles of creosote flats and arroyos between Lukeville and nothing much at all. You learn the terrain. You learn what moves at night and what doesn't. Javelina travel in family groups, low and grunting. Coyotes, the animal kind, move with purpose, direct lines between den and hunting ground. People move differently, slower. They rest. They carry weight. What I saw that night moved like nothing I'd cataloged. It was 02:30 hours, temperature down to 58 degrees, wind from the southwest at maybe 5 knots. I was parked on a rise overlooking a natural corridor we call the Wash, a dried riverbed that funnels foot traffic during monsoon season when the deeper roots flood. My night vision was good, 3/4 moon, visibility out to maybe 200 yards before the desert dissolved into shadow. The movement caught my peripheral vision first, something crossing the Wash at speed. I brought up my binoculars, adjusted focus. It was running on all fours. That's not unusual by itself. I've seen people crawl under sensor arrays, move on hands and knees through the brush to stay low. But this wasn't crawling. This was running. A full sprint on 4 limbs with a stride length that didn't make anatomical sense. The figure covered ground like a racing dog, but the proportions were wrong. Too long in the torso, joints bending at angles that made my own knees ache in sympathy. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 47. I have movement in the wash. Single individual. Moving east at high speed. Requesting backup for intercept. Static. Then Maria's voice. Copy 47. Nearest unit is 22. ETA 20 minutes. Can you maintain visual? Affirmative. But I'd already lost it. The figure had covered maybe 300 yards in the time it took me to make the call, then vanished into a stand of Palo Verde at the wash's eastern edge. I started my vehicle and moved to intercept, following the access road that paralleled the drainage. My headlights swept over the familiar landscape, cholla casting spined shadows, the fence line running straight and purposeful through the chaos of desert growth. I knew there was a gap in the fence about half a mile ahead, a place where flash flooding had undermined the foundation. We'd reported it. Repairs were scheduled. I parked 50 yards from the gap and continued on foot. Flashlight in my left hand, right hand near my sidearm. Not drawn. I'm not that kind of agent, but ready. The gap was empty. I swept my light across the disturbed sand, looking for tracks. There were marks. Not footprints exactly. Drag marks, maybe, or something scraped by wind. I crouched down, trying to read the story the ground was telling, when I heard the voice. Agua, por favor. A woman's voice. Hoarse. Desperate. Coming from the brush 20 feet to my left. I turned, raising my flashlight. Ma'am, I'm a federal agent. I can help you. Come out where I can see you. Por favor, mis hijos. My children. I knew that voice. 3 weeks ago, I'd found a woman collapsed from heat exhaustion 2 miles south of here. She'd been separated from her group, looking for her 2 sons. We'd gotten her to medical care, and Border Patrol had located the boys the next day, safe with relatives in Tucson. I'd been there when she was reunited with them. I'd heard her cry those exact words, mis hijos, in that exact cadence of relief and anguish. But she was in Tucson, in a detention facility awaiting her hearing. Ma'am, you need to come out. I can't help you if I can't see you. The voice changed, shifted registers entirely. Unit 47, what's your status? It was Maria's voice. Perfect dispatch inflection, the slight Sonoran accent she never quite lost. 47, respond. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, I'm on site. Did you just call me? Negative, 47. You called in movement, remember? Status? The voice in the brush spoke again, still using Maria's voice. Unit 47, what's your status? 47, respond. 47, respond. My hand moved to my sidearm. Who's out there? The brush rustled. Not wind. Something moving deliberately, repositioning. I caught a glimpse of pale skin, or maybe fabric. An arm, perhaps. Wrong length. Then a child's voice. Mister? Mister, I'm lost. English this time. A boy, maybe 8 or 9. The same age as the kid I'd found last summer. The American kid from Phoenix, who'd wandered away from his family's camping trip and crossed the border by accident, following what he thought was the trail back to the campground. Mister, it's dark. I can't find my dad. I knew it wasn't the boy. The boy was home in Phoenix. I'd driven him there myself, watched him run into his father's arms. But the voice was perfect. The slight lisp on the S sounds, the tremor of fear held barely in check. Come out where I can see you, I said. My voice was steady. Training held. I'm scared of the dark.
Something moved in my peripheral vision. Fast. That same wrong-jointed sprint, circling around behind me. I spun, flashlight sweeping, and saw nothing but creosote and shadow. Then my daughter's voice. "Daddy?" I froze. "Daddy, where are you?" Emma, 7 years old, home in Tucson with her mother, 200 miles from here. Asleep in her bed with her stuffed rabbit and her nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. "Daddy, I can't find you. It's dark." The voice was coming from directly ahead now, from the gap in the fence. I could see the opening, the torn chain link, the darkness of Mexico beyond. "Daddy, please." My flashlight beam shook. Just slightly. Just enough that I noticed. I should call it in. I should wait for backup. I should retreat to my vehicle and maintain a perimeter until Unit 22 arrives. But it's my daughter's voice, and she's calling for me in the dark. Missing Livestreamer. Monica's last stream ran for 3 hours and 42 minutes. I've watched it 11 times now, sitting in her apartment with her laptop, because the police said they needed someone to go through her digital footprint. They meant emails, cloud storage, that sort of thing. But I kept coming back to the stream. She'd been hiking the Cascade Ridge Trail, a 12-mile loop she'd done dozens of times. The footage showed everything you'd expect. Douglas firs crowding the path, that particular quality of Pacific Northwest light filtering green through the canopy. Monica's occasional commentary about chanterelles growing near rotted logs. Her subscriber count had been climbing, 4,300 people watching live at peak. Now the archived video had 1.2 million views. The first 10 times I watched, I was looking for something obvious. A person in the background, signs of a struggle. The moment she realized something was wrong. The 11th time, I turned the volume up and closed my eyes. At the 3:18:34 mark, Monica stopped at her usual spot, a granite outcropping overlooking the valley. "God, I never get tired of this view," she said. Her voice had that slightly performative quality she used for the camera, warm and inviting. Then, half a second later, quieter, from somewhere off camera, "Never get tired of this view." I opened my eyes and scrubbed back, watched it again. The echo was so faint I'd missed it every other time, buried under wind noise and the rustle of her pack. But it was there. The same inflection, the same rhythm. At 3:22:11, she was walking again, narrating her route. Taking the North Fork here, should hit the campsite in about 40 minutes. The campsite in about 40 minutes. This time I caught it live. My skin prickled. I checked the audio levels. No indication of feedback or a glitch. The repeated words came from a different position in the stereo field, slightly to the left of where Monica's voice registered. The repetitions continued. Not every sentence, but enough. At 3:31:45, she mentioned the light getting low. The echo came back, barely audible. At 3:35:02, she talked about setting up camp near Widow's Creek. Again, that delayed repetition, like someone standing just outside the frame, mouthing her words a half second behind. By 3:39:00, Monica had gone quiet. She was still walking, the camera bouncing with her gait, but she wasn't narrating anymore.
The forest sounds filled the silence. Her footsteps on the trail, a distant crow, the creak getting louder as she approached. Then she stopped walking. For 20 seconds, the camera stayed fixed on the trail ahead. The light was failing, everything going blue-gray. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. "Is someone there?" she said. "Someone there?" This time, the echo was clearer, louder. And the voice. I'd convinced myself before that it was just Monica's voice bouncing off the trees, some acoustic trick. But listening now, with my eyes closed and the volume maxed, I could hear the difference. The repeated words had a flatness to them, no breath behind them, like someone playing back a recording, except it was happening in real time, responding to words that had just been spoken. The stream ended 47 seconds later. Not cut off, it just stopped, as if Monica had calmly reached up and pressed the button. The final frame showed the trail, empty, darkening. I drove out to Cascade Ridge the next morning. The police had already searched the area, found her phone near the Widow's Creek campsite, battery dead. No other signs. I told myself I was looking for something they'd missed, but really I just needed to see it. The trail looked exactly like it had on camera. Same trees, same granite outcroppings. I'd hiked with Monica before, knew her rhythms, knew where she'd stop for water. At the 3-hour mark, I reached the overlook. God, I never get tired of this view, I said aloud, testing something. The forest swallowed my words. Normal echo, normal acoustics. I kept walking. The light was starting to fail. I timed it to match her stream. At 3:35, I reached the North Fork. Took it. The creek sound grew louder. That specific rushing tone that meant I was close. My phone buzzed. Text from Monica's mom, asking if I'd found anything. I stopped to reply, thumbs moving across the screen. Nothing yet, almost to the campsite. From somewhere in the trees, quiet but distinct, almost to the campsite. My hands froze. The voice had come from my left, maybe 20 feet into the forest. I turned slowly, scanning the darkening woods. "Hello?" I said. "Hello?" Not an echo. The timing was wrong. That same half-second delay, that same flat quality. I took a step backward, toward the trail. "Who's there?" "Who's there?" I was running before I made the conscious decision to run. My pack slamming against my spine, branches whipping past. Behind me, I could hear my own footsteps repeated, offset by half a second. The sound of my breathing, played back wrong. I didn't stop until I reached my car. Sat in the driver's seat with the doors locked, hands shaking too hard to get the key in the ignition. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Monica's mom. I looked at the screen, then at the dark line of trees beyond the parking lot. Very carefully, I turned off my phone's volume. Then I started the engine and drove, watching the rearview mirror, listening for the gap between my words and their return. That half-second space where something waits, learning how we sound. Desert influencers. I was only there because Riley paid for gas. That's the truth. I didn't give a shit about her channel or Declan's TikTok or any of it. I had 3 days off from the restaurant and 200 followers who are mostly bots. And Riley said she'd cover expenses if I came along to add authenticity. I think she meant I looked tired enough to seem haunted. The plan was simple. Drive 2 hours into the Mojave, film some spooky ritual bullshit at sunset, post it across platforms, ride the algorithm. Riley had found the ritual on some Reddit thread, a supposed Navajo summoning ceremony, except it was clearly written by a white guy in Portland because half the ancient words were just Spanish pronounced badly. Declan printed it out at a FedEx. That's the level of research we're talking about. It's about the aesthetic, Riley said, checking her ring light for the 4th time. People don't want real, they want real looking. We set up near some rocks that looked vaguely mystical if you squinted. Declan arranged the props. Candles from Target, a circle of salt, some crystals Riley got at a mall kiosk. I held the phone on a gimbal while Riley and Declan knelt in the center, reading the words off Declan's screen. The sun was doing that thing where it turns everything orange and makes bad decisions look cinematic. Riley started chanting, her voice taking on this performative tremor. Yeitso, yeitso, abini do hojo. Absolute gibberish. Declan joined in, swaying like he was at Coachella. I should have laughed. I wanted to. But something about hearing those sounds out loud in that place made my mouth dry. The wind had stopped. I remember that specifically. The wind just stopped. And the silence felt like pressure. Did you get it? Riley asked, breaking character immediately, checking her teeth in her phone's black screen. Yeah, I said. It's good. Declan stood up, brushing dust off his knees. Fuck, I think I knelt on a rock. Check if my knee's bleeding. It wasn't, but there was something on his neck, a thin red line, almost like a scratch, except it hadn't been there before. I didn't mention it. We packed up and drove to the motel in Barstow, and Riley spent the whole ride editing on her laptop, adding filters that made the desert look cursed. This is going to hit 1 million easy, she said. At the motel, Declan said he felt weird. Not sick, just weird. He kept touching his neck. The scratch had gotten longer, extending down toward his collarbone in a pattern that looked almost deliberate, like something drawn. You probably brushed against a bush, Riley said, not looking up from her phone. She was already posting teasers. The comments were rolling in. This is so creepy. Where is this? What did you summon, LOL? I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and scrubbed through the raw footage, just to see if we'd gotten anything usable for my own account. That's when I saw it. In the background, behind Riley and Declan during the chant, there was someone standing by the rocks. Not close, maybe 30 feet back. A figure, dark against the sunset, completely still. I would have noticed. I was looking through the viewfinder the entire time. There was no one there. I rewound it, watched again. The figure didn't move, didn't approach. It just stood there. And as the chant went on, it seemed to lean forward, like it was listening. I checked the timestamp. Right when Riley said the last phrase, Hojo, the figure was gone. Just empty desert. I knocked on Riley's door. She answered in a face mask, annoyed. There's someone in the footage, I said. What? I showed her. She watched it twice, then shrugged. Probably a hiker. Makes it better, honestly. More authentic. Riley, there was no one there. Then it's a glitch. I don't know. I'm not taking it down. It's already at 200,000 views. Back in my room, I heard Declan through the wall. He was talking, but I couldn't make out words, just a low, rhythmic sound. Chanting, almost. I pressed my ear to the wall. He was repeating the phrases from the ritual, over and over, his voice flat and mechanical. I texted Riley, "Something's wrong with Declan." She didn't respond. In the morning, Declan looked worse. The marks on his neck had spread across his chest in branching lines, like roots. His eyes were bloodshot, and he moved stiffly, like his joints didn't quite fit anymore. "We should go to a hospital," I said. "I'm fine," Declan said. His voice sounded wrong, distant. "We need to finish the content series. Riley wants to film the follow-up." Fuck the follow-up. Riley came out of her room, phone already recording. "This is perfect," she said, filming Declan's neck. "This is so perfect. Declan, can you say you've been having nightmares? Just improve something." "Riley, stop."
Engagement is through the roof. We're trending on 3 platforms. Declan smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I've been dreaming about the desert," he said to the camera. "Something's calling me back." We got in the car. I drove because Riley was posting, and Declan was staring out the window, whispering under his breath. We were supposed to head back to LA, but Declan kept saying, "Turn here, turn here," and Riley kept saying, "Let him navigate. This is great content." We ended up back on the highway near where we'd filmed. Declan got out of the car before I'd even stopped. He walked into the desert, toward the rocks, and Riley followed with her phone up. I pulled up the footage again on my phone, scrubbed to the end. The figure was back, but closer now. Close enough that I could see it wasn't a person. The proportions were wrong. Too tall, arms too long, and it was looking directly at the camera. Directly at me. I looked up. Declan was standing in the circle we'd made, the salt still faintly visible. He was chanting again, the same words, but this time his voice layered, like multiple people speaking through him. Riley was filming, crying, still filming. "Riley, get back in the car." She didn't move. "It's real," she whispered. "Oh my God, it's real." Declan turned around. His eyes were black, full black, and the marks on his skin were moving, writhing under the surface. He smiled. "You called," he said, but it wasn't his voice. "You spoke the words. You invited us." I understood then. We hadn't faked anything. We'd just been stupid enough to think intention mattered. That belief mattered. The words were real. The ritual was real. And we'd performed it perfectly, accidentally, for an audience of thousands. And something had answered. I was driving the old rig through the desert, late again, hauling freight along the dusty stretch between Flagstaff and Albuquerque. The night was calm, the radio barely audible, playing another static-riddled country song. I didn't mind these long hauls. In fact, I preferred them. No one to answer to except the boss, who was easygoing as long as the deliveries were on time. But ever since I'd missed that one deadline last month, my sleep had been shot, weighed down by the boss's disappointment. It was a small thing, he'd said, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was one mistake away from losing this gig. The road unraveled ahead, swallowed up by the dark. A thin moon hung low, casting long shadows over the saguaro and scrub. I rubbed my eyes, weary from staring at the asphalt for too long. Just as I was thinking about the hot coffee waiting at the truck stop up ahead, I saw something on the side of the road. A coyote, or so I thought. It was hunched, watching the approach with eyes that seemed too keen, too knowing. I'd seen plenty of critters on this route, but this one gave me pause. It didn't flinch as I closed in, didn't dart back into the brush. Instead, it stood its ground, eyes fixed on me. Something about it snagged on a thread of guilt I carried. The way it watched reminded me of the boss's look when I'd explained why I was late. Like it could see through my excuses. I shook my head, focusing on the road ahead, passing it by in a blur. But as I checked the mirror, it was still there, watching, and I felt a chill settle over the cab. I shrugged it off, blaming fatigue, and focused on the hum of the engine. Miles ticked by. The air grew cooler, the night deeper. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the coyote, or whatever it was, had been staring right through me. It gnawed at me, a prickle of unease that wouldn't quit. A part of me wanted to stop, to turn back and get a closer look, to prove to myself it was nothing more than a mangy animal. Another part of me, the part that couldn't admit to being wrong, insisted it was nothing. The road stretched on, a ribbon of gray under the starlit sky. I wrestled with the need to stop, maybe even call it in, tell someone. But I kept driving, convincing myself it didn't matter. Yet, every time I glanced in the mirror, I half expected to see those eyes following. Finally, a decision made itself. I turned down the dirt road leading off the highway, heading into the desert. I don't know why I did it, maybe to confront whatever it was that had me so rattled. The truck's tires crunched over the gravel, and the headlights cast long beams into the night. The thing was there again, standing in the headlights like it had been waiting for me all along. It was bigger now, somehow, more real and more wrong. Its limbs shifted unnaturally, folding and unfolding like a puppet's, and its eyes, those eyes, were still fixed on me, reflecting the light with an eerie glow. An unsettling recognition hit me. It was as if the creature knew me, knew what lay beneath my skin, the things I was afraid to face. It moved closer, stepping slowly, deliberately. I held my breath, realizing that turning away now would mean admitting to the fears I'd buried deep. The fear of losing control, of being seen as a failure. I gripped the wheel tighter, feeling the weight of its gaze. For a moment, I thought it might speak, but it simply watched, as if studying me. Realization crept in. This wasn't just some animal. It was something that played on what I hid, what I denied. The thing's presence grew, filling the cab with a suffocating dread. It was pushing me to choose, face it or flee, admit to my flaws or bury them deeper. My hands were slick on the wheel, heart pounding. Maybe it was all in my head, but it didn't feel like it. With a shaky breath, I made my choice. I let go of the wheel and stepped out into the cool desert air. The creature was there, a mere shadow against the starlight, watching, waiting. I took a step forward, then another, until I was close enough to see the dust swirling at its feet. It turned, padding off into the night, leaving me alone in the vast silence. I stayed there for a long time, the wind whispering around me, faced with the truth I'd been avoiding. I'd have to own up to my mistakes, accept them, or they'd keep haunting me, just like those eyes. Back in the cab, the engine's rumble felt different. The road stretched ahead, but now it wasn't just a path through the desert. It was a reminder of the things I couldn't ignore, the things I couldn't keep running from. I knew I'd see those eyes again, feel that gaze, but maybe now I'd have the courage to face it. Every night after the garage shuts down, I grab my coat and make my way over to the diner for a hot meal. Can't beat their chili, though it makes me miss Ma's fry bread something fierce. Tonight was no different.
I had spent the day wrestling with a stubborn old diesel engine, cranky as an old mule and just as unyielding. The sun was barely kissing the horizon when I finally put down my wrench and locked up. The gravel underfoot crunched with a familiar rhythm as I strolled back, the air crisp and sharp enough to nip at my skin. There were remnants of piñon smoke in the breeze, a subtle reminder of home. I was halfway back to the garage when I noticed a silhouette moving near the wash, slinking through the shadows. Figured it was a stray dog, scavenging for scraps. The desert at night has a quiet that goes deep, only broken by the occasional whistle of wind through tiny gaps in the garage walls. As I walked, the creature's movements seemed to mirror mine, with a disconcerting accuracy. I figured I was being fanciful, that it was just coincidence, but the precision of its movements unsettled me, like it was too intentional, or maybe too curious. The sand out here ain't like no beach sand. It's fine, and it gets into every crevice of a truck. Takes forever to clean out. With my boots sinking into the gritty softness, I heard an unusual low growl that echoed with an uncanny resonance, as if the wash had its own voice. My chest tightened, and I halted abruptly, the sound pricking at the edges of innate caution. It was closer now. Up close, the creature wasn't like any dog I'd ever seen. Its eyes shone with an unsettling sheen, like a pair of headlights caught in fog. And its movements, they were unnaturally fast and fluid, like water finding the easiest path. My hands tightened around my flashlight, its weight feeling insufficient against this unknown. With a rising sense of dread, I turned and ran towards the garage, the gravel shifting beneath my boots. I fumbled for my phone, but the display mocked me with its absence of signal. Damn service out here was always spotty, but tonight it might as well be non-existent. The garage seemed impossibly distant, like one of those dreams where you're running but never moving fast enough. I could sense the creature closing in behind me, its presence thickening the air. I burst into the safety of the garage, only to trip over a scatter of tools left out from the day's work. Sprawled on the concrete, I caught a glimpse of the creature's shadow as it twisted and undulated against the garage wall, more liquid than solid. My senses were overwhelmed, the smell of oil and metal mixing with the cold desert air. The sound of wind sweeping through the minute gaps in the garage walls blended with the creature's chilling growl, a lingering echo that wrapped around me like a vice. I lay there, waiting, listening, as if the desert itself was holding its breath alongside me. I tell ya, nothing quite like kicking off another night shift under the desert stars, steaming mug of coffee in hand. The smell hits just right, mixing with the aroma of diesel, like a ritual keeping me tethered to this place. I sat on the tailgate of my '97 Ford, taking small sips, and let my mind wander to visions of Disneyland. Every extra hour here meant one step closer to getting the kids to see that castle, and that thought put a bit more pep in my step. An owl hooted somewhere in the distance, and sure enough, the familiar howling of coyotes joined in, echoing across the desert floor. It was more like a background soundtrack than a threat these days, something I could count on to accompany the work. I tightened my jacket against the cool breeze, gravel crunching under my boots as I made my way back to the grader. The night was young, and there was plenty of road to patch. The howling persisted, more insistent, carrying on the wind. I told myself it was just closer than usual, and coyotes had their way of making the night their own. No sense worrying about them when I had a job to do, so I kept my hands busy on the controls, the grader's engine grumbling along the way only an old trucker could love. But then I heard it again, more piercing, and it got under my skin enough to make me glance around. Just shadows out there, undulating hills and saguaro silhouettes against the stars. I shook it off with a deep breath, letting the diesel and dust ground me back to the task at hand. No time for spooks when you're trying to keep a rickety grader on track. It was that moment, just over the highway's curve, that my eyes caught a glimmer. 2 yellow eyes, hanging too high off the ground to belong to any ordinary coyote. I stopped cold, eyes straining to make sense of what was out there. The wind kicked up, biting at my skin, but I stood there, transfixed. Out of the shadows, it stepped into view. A creature resembling a coyote, but moving with such unnatural fluidity and speed that my pulse quickened. My hands fumbled the radio, fingers numb and clumsy as I tried to call for backup, voice wavering as I forced the words out. Static hissed in reply, a haunting undertone to the silence that enveloped me. I tried again, chest tightening, but the only answer was the eerie howling, creeping in through the speakers, drowning out rational thought. My knees were locked in place, unable to move toward the truck, toward any semblance of safety. The creature stared, eyes fixed and unblinking. Then, as silently as it had appeared, it turned and vanished into the darkness, leaving only its eyes burned into my memory, an unsettling echo in the night. And so, the desert reclaimed its mysteries, leaving me alone with the stars, the diesel, and the dust. Every morning, I get up before the sun and brew a strong cup of Navajo tea. It's the only thing that really wakes me up. The steam rose from the cup, curling like the smoke from a sage bundle, as I prepared for another long day, checking on livestock near Shiprock. The roads out this way can be bumpy, and it's a wonder my old '84 Ford truck still makes it through without falling apart. Folks depend on me to make sure their sheep and cattle are in good shape, and come fall, the air starts getting that crispness in the mornings. Makes you feel alive when you're out in the field. I shook off the sleepiness, gathered my gear, and headed out while the rest of the world still slumbered. It was 3 a.m. when I turned onto the old dirt road, cutting through the secluded ranch land, moonlight lost to a sky full of stars. The smell of rain lingered from the night before, mixing with the dust that got into everything. It's like it's got a mind of its own. That's when I spotted it. A creature up ahead in the headlights, moving stealthily at the edge of the road. My first thought was a stray dog, maybe one of those that sometimes wander the ranches looking for scraps. The truck rattled over the bumps, the engine grumbling in protest. I kept one hand steady on the wheel, the other tapping the dashboard like it might help everything settle. The creature stayed in the periphery of my vision, not quite moving like a dog, but I shrugged it off. Plenty of critters around these parts didn't move like you'd expect. Then, from the passenger side, I heard a low, unsettling growl that made my nerves jangle, followed by a sound like rustling leaves brushing against the truck. A knot formed in my stomach, and I glanced over, seeing nothing but darkness pressing against the window. Out of nowhere, it was beside me, eyes reflecting the faint light like mirrors catching sunlight. It moved with unnatural speed, a flicker of darkness and glinting eyes. I fumbled for the radio, knocking it off its perch, my fingers shaky and unsteady. Calling for backup, for the ranchers or anyone who might be awake this early, seemed my only option. The radio crackled with static, words lost in a sea of noise, while the engine sputtered in complaint, the atmosphere inside the truck turning biting cold. My arms felt heavy, struggling to move, while my breath came shallow. The dust settled thickly, a cold draft seeping in through the gaps of the old truck, coiling around me. I peeked into the rearview mirror, and there it stood, a spectral figure against the faint hue of dawn beginning to break. Its eyes gleamed, catching the hint of the first light. Then it dissolved into the earth like it was never there. The road ahead lay quiet and still, just the dust settling behind me. and the only sound was the sputtering engine and my own ragged breaths. I sat there, fingers gripping the steering wheel, the feel of calluses grounding me to something tangible. The early morning resumed its quiet rhythm, leaving me with unanswered questions and the memory of those gleaming eyes. My tea had long gone cold, but I took a sip anyway, letting the taste linger on my tongue as echoes from the night slipped into the waking world.
Mornings come early out here, especially when you gotta feed the chickens before you head out to the construction site. Chicken feeding ain't my favorite thing, but it's gotta be done, and today was no different. Once the day's work at the construction site wrapped up, I took a moment to watch the sunset. The sky over Tuba City sure knows how to put on a show. Reds and oranges painting across the horizon like nature's canvas. That desert air gets cool at night, chillier than you'd expect after a long, hot day. I climbed into my old Ford F-150 and gave a sigh. Another long day, another dusty trail ahead. I fired up the truck, the engine rumbling to life, and started down the old res highway, dodging potholes as if it were second nature. The wind carried the scent of sagebrush, which made the drive a bit easier. As I drove, I noticed something near the highway. At first glance, it resembled a stray dog, padding alongside the road. Ain't uncommon around these parts. I ain't one to stop for every critter, figured it would find its way, and drove on. Glancing in the rear view, though, surprised me. That dog seemed to be keeping pace with my truck, its silhouette hanging in the corner of my eye. I put my foot down a little and watched as the needle on the speedometer crept up. But it kept up, unnaturally so. The more I stared, the stranger it seemed. Its eyes weren't like any animal I'd seen. They glowed, stark against the night, reflecting the truck's lights back at me. My hands gripped the wheel a bit tighter, knuckles showing white. Next thing I knew, it was closer than it should have been. Its movements erratic, like it was unsure of how legs should work. I could feel my breath catch, trying to keep the wheel steady as I fumbled for the radio. "Breaker, breaker," I stammered, trying to get through to anyone on the line, but all I got was static and some crackles. The radio just hissed back at me, every word lost somewhere in the airwaves. Then, wouldn't you know it, the headlights flickered. Just a flicker, but enough to make my heart skip. When they steadied again, it was gone. One moment there, the next, just gone. Left me sitting there in silence, the hum of the truck's engine all I could hear. I pulled the truck over, hands shaking a bit, and listened. The desert was quiet, the kind that set my teeth on edge. Then, the faintest sound reached me, howling. Off in the distance, carried by the wind, a low, ominous call that told me it was out there, unseen. Didn't matter that I couldn't see it no more. Its presence lingered, and I knew the night wasn't done with me just yet.
Every time I got a busted tractor in, country music's right there, playing over the hum of the engine. Out here in Chinle, the chill cuts through your clothes come November. But you get used to it. Sometimes I wish these farmers would stop trying to fix things themselves before they bring them to me. Half the time, they make it worse. Dust gets into everything, no matter how tight you think you sealed it. And it always smells like dry earth. My hands are calloused from turning wrenches, but it's a good kind of ache. Something honest. So, there I was, driving down the old farm road near the edge of the res. The clock reading 3 a.m. The radio was playing, some old George Strait tune that belonged there. The thing about these roads is, they're pretty much yours at that hour. Just me and the coyotes. so it didn't surprise me none when I first heard that howl. Nothing unusual around these parts. Just a lone coyote, I figured, yapping at the moon. But as the miles crawled by, that howl didn't fade. No, sir. It grew louder, like it was closing the gap. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice. The road was too narrow to spin the truck round, a 1984 Ford F-150 that had seen better days. The old rig's bed rattled over the washboard surface of the road, making it impossible to pick up speed without risking a spill. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a figure moving. It was fast, keeping pace with me, a dark outline against the moonlight. A shiver ran through me, colder than the November air. This thing moved with a speed I'd never seen before, unnaturally quick. The figure came into focus alongside the truck. It was like a coyote, but its eyes, they weren't right. They glinted in the pale light, too much like a man's, like they were trying to see through me. My hands fumbled for the radio, the dial fighting me as I turned it. Static crackled to life, drowning out the music and filling the cab with a raw, angry noise. I hoped the sharp sound might spook the creature, but it only paused, eyes fixing on me with an unsettling stare that seemed to see deeper than skin. An intelligence lurked there, unnerving in its calmness, and my pulse pounded in my chest, each beat loud and rhythmical in the tight space of the cab. I pressed the pedal harder, the engine grumbling as the truck surged forward. The road unspooled in the headlights, a narrow ribbon cutting through the land. I didn't dare look back, but in the rearview mirror, those eyes, they stayed with me, glowing against the darkness like embers. As the truck sped away, the creature's form melted back into the shadows where it had come from. But those eyes, they lingered, watching until the horizon swallowed the road. I always get my coffee at the diner just off Highway 191 before heading to the pump sites. The woman behind the counter knows me by now and has a steaming cup ready as soon as I step inside. It's a quiet spot, especially at this hour, with only the hum of the old jukebox keeping the silence at bay. After a nod and a thank you, I'm back in the truck, feeling the warmth of the cup through my gloves, dreading the cold waiting outside. The night shift ain't so bad, but this cold January air cuts right through ya, makes my hands stiff something fierce. The heater in my old Ford does its best, but it's just a whisper of warmth. The road to the oil fields is long and lonely, more gravel than pavement, marked by the crunch beneath my tires. Folks around here say the coyotes sing louder in winter, but I think it's just the way the sound carries in the cold, winding its way through the sagebrush and over the hills. As the truck's headlights slice through the dark, something darts across the road. A coyote, I figure, just one of many I've seen on these drives. Most times they scamper right off, but this one stands still on the shoulder, its eyes catching the light in a way that makes my muscles tense. I shove the thought back, shake it off. There's work to be done, after all. The oil rigs hum their low, endless song as I pull up to the site. Sometimes I swear they play a tune of their own, a sound that sticks with you long after you've left. I kill the engine and step out, the gravel crunching under my boots, but it ain't the only sound now. It's a howl, or maybe two, distorted and eerie, ricocheting through the darkness. My breath catches, the cold night air sharper in my lungs. I spot it again, that coyote, closer now, near the pump. The peculiar way it stands motionless sets my nerves on edge. Its eyes shine too brightly, and its limbs jerk like they're being pulled by invisible strings. Ain't natural. The radio at my hip feels like a lifeline, but when I fumble for it, there's only garbled static on the other end. My fingers feel thick and clumsy, and the weight of the silence presses down harder. Backing away, I keep my eyes on the creature, on the unnerving shimmer of its gaze. The truck, my refuge, sits waiting, and I think, if I can get in, start it up. But the engine only grinds, refusing to catch. The unease creeps in quietly, stirring at the back of my mind. In the distance, more eyes blink into existence, reflecting the truck's stubborn headlights, a gathering of their kind, drawn by the sound or the silence, or maybe just some instinct. The chill bites harder, but I'm rooted to the spot, frozen between the broken-down truck and the watching eyes. Then the air fills with that low, droning hum again, the rigs singing their song, but it's different now, eerie, mingling with the coyote's howls, filling the space until it's all around me, inside me, an endless night melody that consumes everything. Just like every other night, I was out there cradling my old thermos, feeling the warmth as I sip my coffee, keeping the chill at bay. The desert had a way of cooling right down to your bones, especially around this time of year. My shift usually started when most folks were heading to bed, but I kind of liked the quiet out there on the Navajo Nation. I always say the desert night has a smell to it, something like dry earth and a hint of sagebrush. The stars were bright over AZ 264, the dark sky wrapped around me like an old blanket. Driving those bumpy service roads near Black Mesa made my teeth rattle, and my truck, a trusty old '88 Ford Ranger, bounced like it had a mind of its own. You'd think by now they'd have fixed them lines near Black Mesa, but I'd bet my old boots it wasn't high on anyone's list. As I pulled over to check the lines, rustling from the roadside startled me. A glance had me thinking it was a stray dog rummaging. Nothing unusual for these parts. Sometimes they came sniffing around looking for scraps. But the way this dog moved seemed unnatural. Its gait didn't seem right, and the speed. It moved faster than any dog I'd ever seen. I shrugged it off, though, thinking maybe I was just tired, and continued my inspection. My mind was on the job, looking up at those humming lines slicing through the sky. Soon, I heard a low, vibrating hum, but it came from somewhere other than the lines this time. I paused, the sound wrapping around me like ice water down my spine. Turning toward the noise, I caught sight of glowing eyes peering from the dark. They reflected oddly in the truck's headlights, not like an animal, more like something out of place. Then it emerged, hunched, moving across the uneven ground with unnerving speed. The creature's eyes reflected the light in a way that created a strange halo. My hands fumbled for the radio. My heart felt like it might burst, the thermos slipping from my grasp and clattering to the floor with a dull thud. I tried to call for help, but the radio spat only garbled static, each crackle filling the cab like a derisive laugh. My fingers, cold and stiff, scrabbled at the keys in the ignition, desperate to start the truck, to get away from whatever this figure was. Just when I thought the engine would turn over, it stalled, leaving a heavy silence draped over the road. I sat there, frozen. My breathing seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet. The last sound in the muffled night was the wind through the junipers, like whispers passing through a secretive council, accompanied by a distant, inhuman howl that echoed across miles of open desert. It sent a tremor through me, and I knew the desert's night watch had its eyes on me. I was driving my old Ford F-100 down the dirt track known as Ranch Road 340 that morning. The clock just nudged past 4 a.m. It was November, and the biting chill had a way of seeping right through the truck's worn-down windows. Dust swirled up behind me, a constant companion on these borderland commutes. but I had my sights set on the power lines that needed checking before first light. The CB radio crackled from time to time, offering not much more than static and the occasional garbled voice. Out here, near the Navajo Nation borderlands, you couldn't depend on much else. Folks always told me to move in closer to town where I could rest easier, but the thought never sat right with me. As I pushed the truck along the ranch road, something caught my eye to the right. A blur at first, moving along the roadside. The kind of shape you'd think belonged to a coyote. I squinted against the darkness, but the thing felt a notch off, a tad too large. On these early mornings, eyes play tricks, and I reckoned it was a trick of the light. The wind was howling something fierce through the canyon that morning. Like it had secrets it was desperate to spill. I brushed it aside, focusing on the bumps and bends in the road. The truck rattled like it could spill its guts any second, but the old beast had more heart than anything else I'd driven. Then, a wail pierced the air. A howl too strange, climbing up the spine like it didn't belong to any creature I'd known. My fingers clamped the steering wheel tighter. The road stretched out like a ribbon of shadow before me, and I drove on, pretending that the sound hadn't reached as deep as it did. A figure burst across the headlights. It bounded over the dirt with a kind of speed that was unsettling, its eyes catching the light, glowing far too bright. My foot jammed the brakes, heart pounding in my chest. The creature moved in a chaotic pattern, its strides all wrong, zigzagging across the road before vanishing into the brush. I reached for the CB, hoping someone might be out on the job early, like me. "Anyone out there?" I called, keeping my voice steady. Static crackled back, a chorus of garbled noise that offered no comfort, no answer. That wind kept whispering its mysteries as I eased back into my drive, not sure what I'd just seen. In the rearview mirror, the outline appeared once more, keeping pace with the truck. My breath hitched, hands gripping the wheel harder than steel. It was there, shifting in the shadows, its form distorted, limbs too long to belong to anything known. My eyes darted from the road to the mirror, back and forth in a rhythm, each look gripping me tighter. The dawn's first light stained the horizon, turning black into deep blue. The creature slid back into the darkness, its presence a haunting whisper. In the fading glow of the mirror, its eyes lingered, mismatched, shimmering unnaturally. My foot pressed the pedal, urging the truck faster as the dawn broke, washing away the night and whatever specter it held. I didn't slow down until I reached those power lines, the world now bathed in early sunlight. Dust still clung to the air, and the sagebrush's smell comforted me more than ever. I stepped out of the truck, boots crunching on the gravel, and looked back over the trail I'd come. Just the road, the dust, and the hum of power lines stretching into the endless land. It was only me out there now, or maybe it always had been.